Hi, I'm Yanni from Mbrella, and I will show you how you can easily add your expenses in the tool. In the menu, navigate to the tab Expenses. You can see two tabs, All Expenses and Recurring Expenses. Here at the top right, you can add a single expense. For example, if you purchased a bike. Recurring expenses are useful for an expense that you want to add on a monthly basis. For example, your rent or loan expenses. Let's have a look at a single expense first. Add your expense here, add a title for your expense, for example, a bike, fill out the amount, and select the date of the purchase, not the date that you're adding the expense in Mbrella. For example, last Saturday. Indicate whether the expense is reimbursable or not. If you're not sure what this means, you'll find more info here. A reimbursable expense is an expense that you financed and paid for yourself and that you want your employer to reimburse you for. If, for example, you're using a lease car from the company, you will have to deduct this amount from your legal mobility budget, but you will not pay for the lease car on a monthly basis yourself. This is done between the employer and the leasing company. So, in that case, this would be a non reimbursable expense. So, here you bought a bike, you paid for it, so that's a reimbursable expense. Select a category, in this case bike, and here you can see all the categories under the legal mobility budget that you can select. So here we purchased a bike, select the budget on which you need to expense it. If you have multiple budgets, make sure you select the right one. In this case, it's simply the legal budget. You can add a comment if you want to, and always add a justification here. If, for example, you want to finance your rent, you will add your renting contract here. If you want to finance your loan, you will add the necessary documents here, like your payments, a capital reimbursement table, for example. And in this case, the invoice of your bike purchase. Click Save, and your expense will be added. As you can see, the status is pending. This is because your mobility manager will still have to approve or refuse it. After your expense has been approved, it will be sent to payroll and it will be reimbursed to you with your next salary. As I said, you can also add recurring expenses. Simply click on the tab Recurring Expense and add a recurring expense here. This looks pretty similar, only difference is that you will repeat this expense on a monthly basis. So let's say you want to finance your rent with your mobility budget for an amount of 400 euros, for example. That's a reimbursable expense because you pay for your rent and want to be reimbursed. Here you have the option to reserve for future expenses. This is mostly useful if you're using a lease car that you will have to pay for every month on a monthly basis, or at least, let's say, that needs to be deducted from your legal mobility budget on a monthly basis. So in this case, I'm going to select no. I select the category, rent, my budget is a legal budget, and then here I will choose my first execution date, the first of the month. Note that you can't create a recurring expense in the past. If I still want to add my rent for April, for example, I can just add after this a single expense with 1 month's rent and date it on the 1st of April. So here I select the first of the next month. I can select a last execution date, or I can opt to have it end never. Don't worry, if I change my mind, I want to start spending my budget on something else, I can just simply deactivate this recurring expense. Again, the option to add a comment and always add your proof here. Click Save, and your recurring expense is now added in the overview of recurring expenses. As I said here below under Actions, you can either edit it or deactivate it when you want to start spending your budget on something else.